Hey, world history. This is Miss Corey. Welcome to U3-L1, the Persian Empire. Yeah, you made it to Unit 3. So exciting. So, your job, you're going to watch this Ed puzzle answer the questions. Any question in blue text are going to be questions I want you to answer directly on the Ed puzzle. And of course, if you have any questions, do let us know. Learning standards identify different types of historical sources, both textual and non text based, in order to interpret surviving evidence about ancient cities, societies, and empires, and to detect possible limitations in various kinds of historical evidence and differing secondary interpretations. I know, super wordy. Don't worry about it. So you're like, wait a minute, Miss Corey, this slideshow is about Persia. Aren't we in the Greek unit? Aren't we supposed to be learning about the Greeks? Yes, you are right. But in order to understand the Greeks, you also need to understand the Persians because they fight a lot over the years. So let's talk about the Persian Empire first before we get into the Greeks. So it is also called the Achaemenid Empire, and it lasted from 559 to 334 BCE and has some famous rulers. We'll talk very briefly about them today. We have Cyrus the Great, Darius the First, and Xerxes the First. And it ended in 334 BCE when Alexander the Great would conquer Persia, and we'll talk about Alexander the Great a little bit later on in the unit. So here's a map of the Persian Empire. At first, it started out in more of this kind of darker blue area. This is where Persia originated, which is in what is modern day Iran. It would then expand all the way over here to the border of what is modern day India, over here into what is Greece, which is what our unit is about, and also down here to Egypt, what we talked about last unit. So quite a large empire. So, like I said, the original homeland would be in what is modern day Iran. It was very rich in copper, tin, iron, gold, and silver. And the reason why it got so large is because it conquered the old but massive empires and land that came before it. So, for example, with the Persian Empire, they would conquer Anatolia, which we talked about a little bit before, is right here, where it's kind of the crossroads between Europe and Asia. Also, the Babylonian Empire, which would be right here by the Persian Gulf. The Assyrian Empire, which was just a little bit to the north of that. And then finally, of course, the Egyptian Empire, which we learned about last unit, which is right here. All right, so let's talk about Cyrus the Great first. So he ruled from 559 to 530, and he's famous because he organized the Persian Empire into three social classes. The first being the warriors, then the priests, then the peasants. So the warriors were like the aristocrats, the royalty, the priests, of course, were the religious leaders, and then the peasants were the villagers, the farmers, the shepherds. One of the kind of unique things that he did as well is that once his army would conquer a land, he would actually respect the local religions and traditions. So instead of forcing on like the Persian culture to the conquered people, he would let those conquered people keep their religions and traditions while also being ruled by the Persians. Then we have Darius the First. So he ruled from 522 to 486 BCE, and he conquered land as far east as modern day India. And he also had campaigns as west as what is modern day Austria and Germany. He would also expand Persia's navy. One of the crazy things that he did is he ordered the building of the Canal of the Pharaohs. So, as you can see down here on the map, so this is what would be Egypt at this time. So he ordered people to hand dig a canal from the Nile River all the way over to the Red Sea. That's insane. Think of that. Like thousands and thousands of people just hand digging that. That way, ships could go from the Nile to the Red Sea. The canal closed in 767 CE. It just pretty much dried up. Today, I mean, of course, you can still see kind of like the big ditches in the earth, but it doesn't have any water in it. Then we have Xerxes. So he ruled from 486 to 465 BCE. He was really unique because he paid respect to the old Assyrian kings. So remember, Persia actually conquered the Assyrian Empire, which is really unique because he made like buildings and statues out of famous Assyrian kings, although the Persian Empire was the one that conquered them. And we'll talk about him a little bit later if we talk about the Battle of Thermopylae. Then we have the stairwell at Persepolis. So this is one of the artifacts I want to show you from the Persian Empire. So this building right here, it is called the Apadana. which is this massive event center building for Darius the First and Xerxes. So think of it like a big, like, ballroom, banquet hall kind of thing. Of course, today it's kind of in ruins, but you can still see quite a bit of it. So it had rich people's weddings, coronations, funerals, and New Year's festivals, and every inch of this building, inside and out, is decorated in reliefs. So reliefs are like shallow etchings on walls. I'll show you what those look like. So this is a relief here. So as you can see, it's like a wall, and then it has kind of like a little bit of a 3D carving to it. That's what a relief is. So what do you notice about the reliefs in this picture? And what are these people doing? And what are they carrying? All right. So the crazy thing about these reliefs is that each individual person is actually modeled after someone who lived in real life. So these people are ambassadors for other nations, they are nobles, they are members of the court. Some of them are carrying animals for sacrifice, like this dude here, and some of them are carrying gifts for Persian rulers, like this guy here. All right, next, let's talk about religion of the Persian Empire. So their religion is something called Zoroastrianism. So, Zoroastrianism is an ancient religion. So, why do people care about studying it? So, let me ask you, why are ancient religions important to study? There's many answers to that. A lot of it is because those ancient religions still have connections to today. So Zoroastrianism is still around today. There's about 100,000 people who worship Zoroastrianism. Most of them are in Iran and India. But of course, being the melting pot mosaic that the United States is, there's also a group of people who are worship Zoroastrianism even today. So this is a modern day picture of a congregation in Illinois. And it is considered the first long term monotheistic religion. And it was created about 1700 BCE. So the god is Ahura Mazda, and the people who follow this religion believe that humanity is in a constant struggle of good, which is represented by God, and evil, which is represented by the devil. And individuals are rewarded or punished for good or bad behaviors in the afterlife. They're also very environmentally conscious. So human excretion couldn't contaminate bodies of water. Also, fire is worshipped at altars. It is very sacred. That's why I put this picture here. And the dead were either buried in the earth or eaten by wild animals. So fire is believed to be too sacred to cremate bodies. So the rotting dead bodies were also seen as too unhealthy for just leaving on top of the earth. So that's why dead bodies are either buried or left out to be eaten by wild animals. They also believe in one God and a devil with demon followers. They believe in a heaven and hell. They also believe in a Messiah. A Messiah is a savior to a group of religious people. And at the end of time is when the Messiah will come again. They believe in 6 days of creation, and they also believe in a covenant, which is a religious promise made with God and a mortal human. So the prophet for Zoroastrianism is called Zoroaster. This is a picture of him right here. He is typically depicted with like white robes as well as a shepherd's cane because he's usually depicted as a shepherd. So they also celebrate their holidays, one of the biggest one being during the winter solstice on December 21st. What they do is they decorate their house with red decorations. They also like to cut down pine trees, put them in houses, decorate them, and then leave gifts under them. They would also gather with family and friends to share gifts and food. And when Zoroastrianism was still a very young religion, people would also worship the Assyrian god Mithra, who was born on December 25th. So this is called a Yalda tree. This is the tree that they cut down and put in their house and decorate. This all kind of sounds a little familiar, right? Yeah, there is a historical kind of like thought that there is some relation to Zoroastrianism and the Abrahamic religions. Of course, depending on what ancient historian you want to talk to, they're going to give you a little different of an answer. So, Abrahamic religions include Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the Roman Empire. So, Zoroastrianism, again, was created about 1700 BCE, with it being really popular in about the 500s BCE. Um, And if you relate that to the Torah, which is the Jewish religious text, that was written about roughly 450 BCE. So there's a lot of like timeline, there's a lot of overlap. But again, we won't get into it today because we would spend all day talking about the comparing and contrasting of religions. And we got to move on to other things. All right, so let's wrap it up. Today we learned about the Persian Empire, Cyrus the Great, Darius the First, Xerxes, and Zoroastrianism. Next up, you're going to do U3-L2, the Geography of Ancient Greece Ed puzzle. That's one of the Ed puzzles that's actually made by the Ed Puzzle Company. It just does a really good job about talking about like geographical stuff, I guess. And then after that, you are going to have me back for U3-L3, Ancient Greek Basics. And if you have any questions or want to learn more, please let us know. We're happy to help. Thanks for watching. Bye.